In this video, we'll be looking at Revit MEP 2009 project setup and linking the architectural model. One of the first things that need to happen is the architect must share their project. So on the left here I have the architectural server, and what the architect would most likely do is post their project file up on an FTP site. So here the architect has already copied up the information to share with the extended design team. What can now happen is that me being the MEP firm, I can log into their FTP site and download that file to link into my MEP project. So I'm going to copy this with the clipboard from the FTP site down into our consultant links file on our server. Okay, now that that's been downloaded, we can open up the architect's file and take a look at it. And using Revit MEP 2009, we can do that because it's the same file format. So I'm going to open up the architect's file that I downloaded to take a look inside. I could detach it from Central if it's a work shared file, making it a local copy of their work shared environment. This will avoid any error messages or annoying warnings that come up when I open or link in the file in the future. If it was a work shared file, I could also link in particular work sets that are available inside of it. Since this is not work shared, I don't need to do that. So I'm going to simply open up the file. And really what we're doing here right now is prepping the architectural model to be linked into Revit MEP. Okay, now that the file is open, I can tile both projects side by side here. And let's just close up some of the other views so we can get them side by side and set up. Alright. So on the left is the architectural project, and on the right is the MEP project. One of the first things I want to do is transfer project standards. If I take a look inside settings here in the MEP project, at the project information, I'll notice that none of the default values have been modified. Okay, so the address hasn't been entered, none of the client or project information is in there. However, the architect has already taken the time to fill out that information. So by clicking inside the architectural file, I can go review the same data, and I'll notice that there is information already available. Now, to keep in line with the BIM workflow here, we're using consistent coordinated data. So I'm going to take that data that they've already created and bring it over into my file using transfer project standards. I may also want to bring over some project parameters that they may have created, which will be useful in my project file. So to do the project standards transfer, I need to be inside my MEP project first of all, and then I can access the file menu and select project standards to transfer them across. This will look back into the architectural file and allow me to transfer a whole bunch of things over. But I'm only interested in project information and project parameters at this time, so I'm going to select only those two items and click OK. I'll get an overwrite option here to actually use new or overwrite information that's duplicated. I'm going to overwrite the existing values for project info, and now if I go and review that data in my MEP project, I'll notice that I am synchronized with the architect now. I'm just going to change my project number because I use a different system than the architect. And if I take a look at the project parameters, I've basically acquired their project parameters they have created as well. The next thing I need to do is inside the architect's project, I need to access their title block family and bring it into my MEP project so that our title blocks are synchronized. To do that, I'm going to go into the architect's project and expand families in the browser. I'm also going to expand annotation symbols, and I'll note that there are two title block families available. I don't need the cover sheet, so I'm going to steal this basic D-size sheet. So I need to use the family editor in this case to transfer this standard across. So by right-clicking on that family, I can open up the family for editing in the family editor. Once in the family editor, I can go and attach a symbol which has my company logo and information, and basically stamp the title block family. Let's just assume I've done that, and now I'm ready to load it into the project, my MEP project that is. So I'll click load in the project here on the design bar. Here's my MEP project, project 1, and by clicking OK, that's going to bring it in now. So if I'm in my MEP project, I can right click on Sheets and select New Sheet, and I have basically created a sheet using the title block family of the architect. Okay. Alright, now we can go back to the architect's file and slim it down. To slim it down, I'm going to start first with views. Views take up space in the file, so I'm going to remove unnecessary views that will allow me to slim the file down. I'm going to remove everything except a plan view and an elevation view. So this will include removing sheets, legends, anything I don't necessarily need. And if I right click after I control select all these items, I can delete them. And I should be left with just the first floor and the south building elevation. What also bloats the file is any kind of family information that's not being used. So what I'm going to do is select all the annotation within this view that I have open inside the architect's model and filter out what I want to get rid of basically. So I'm going to keep the doors and the floors, the generic models, the grids, the plumbing fixtures, the rooms, the walls, and the windows. I'm going to get rid of everything else which doesn't really need to be visible. And if I hit OK, it's going to delete all that annotation. Alright, now I can go up to File and select Purge Unused. This will give me an itemized list inside a dialog which will allow me to preview everything that's been selected by Revit to be purged. So in a minute here we'll see that dialog. And you'll notice it actually picked up 263 items which can be purged from the system, one of them being the title block. Okay, no sheets, no need for a title block family. I'm going to hit OK, get rid of all that extra information. And now I'm ready to save the file. So I'll go to File, Save As. I'm going to save it right next to the one I copied down from the FTP site and just give it a suffix here of -linked so we can see the size of the file in comparison to the original one. And once that's complete, I can go and close the architect's project down. Alright, now I can go back into the MEP project and link in the architect's file. There are two different ways to do it. I can go to the File menu and select Import Link Revit, which will allow me to browse for a Revit file, or I can right click on Revit links in the project browser of my MEP project and select New Link. And it'll take me right to my Consultants folder, and there's our new file that we created from the original one we downloaded via the FTP site. And you can see it's roughly half the size of the original file. So all that purging helped. The next thing I want to do is position it. Revit's origin is the same in MEP as well as in architecture. So origin to origin is the best method to use here when linking files. I can also selectively bring in work sets if it's a work shared file. So to actually increase or help loading up the file become faster. This is not a work shared architectural file, so I can just select Open. And in a minute here, we'll notice that the architectural file has been linked in. And it will be visible in the project browser. And there it is. Okay, so if I expand Revit links here, you'll notice that there's the file that we linked in from the architect. We could also get to the links manager via the file menu. So if you want to go manage your links, you can select manage links here. So you can manage all your CAD formats, Revit files, or DWF markup sets. You could also manage links from right-clicking on Revit links in the project browser. Now the first thing I want to do with this Revit model is I want to pin its location. To do that, I'm going to select the linked model and select the pin operation here. This will allow users to work freely without worrying about bumping the architectural model out of position. They can't even move it with the move command without being warned by Revit. Alright, the next thing I got to do is I got to set up the link file to be room bounding. If you notice, if I click my space tool here, which is a volume tool used by the MEP engineer to create the volumes of the model, it will not detect the bounding elements of the architectural link. So what I need to do is select the link, right click, go to element properties, and you'll notice here it's a type property, so I got to click edit new now and check the box to make the link file room bounding. And if I OK out of the dialogues and select the space tool this time, you'll notice that it detects all the bounding elements of this plan view, which is the floor level and the surrounding walls. But I have to do one other important step. I have to make sure my levels are set up properly to coincide with the architects. Let's switch to a south elevation to take a look. Now if I notice in this view here, I can see two sets of levels. One set is the architect's levels and one set is my levels in my project. And if I look close enough, level 2 is just shy of the roof level here. So I'm going to match the architect's level by typing in the same elevation height. I'm also going to match the name. Now I can go ahead and rename level 1 to match first floor plan in the architect's model, the first floor level I mean. But I'm not going to go that far because I can leave my names completely different than the architect's, which is really nice. What I also want to do is make sure that I have levels in there that will help me create all the volumes of the model that I need to do my analysis. I'm going to switch to a wireframe mode here, and one of the neat things you can do with the linked file is you can tab through it to select things that are within inside the model itself. So I'm going to tab down to select the ceiling object here. And you'll notice up in the type selector on my options bar, I can see that it's a 2x2 acoustical tile ceiling, but more importantly, if I go to element properties, it's at a height of 8.5 feet above the first floor. This is good news for me because I know I'm going to have some plenum up here to deal with. So I need to create a level. On the Basics tab is the Level tool. If I click that, I can select from the type selector the plenum level type. I'm going to use the pick lines operation. I'm going to make a plan view to create the volumes inside the plenum. And I really don't need a ceiling plan, so I'm going to deselect that from the view types. And all I need to do now is specify my offset of 8.5 feet, and I can come over here and hover over level 1 to create my plenum level. Now you'll notice that Mechanical 3 came into play here underneath my HVAC floor plans. I'm going to go and rename it in my elevation first. I'm going to call it level 1 plenum. Revit will ask me if I want to rename the plan view as well. I'm going to say no, because I'm going to name that to match what I already started inside the project browser. So I'm going to call this 1-mech plenum. And my levels are set up. But one thing I may want to do is I want to keep track of the elevations of the architect's levels. He may move these things over different design iterations, so I want to be able to synchronize with that. And to do that, I'm going to use the Copy Monitor tool. Copy Monitor is found under the Tools menu, as well as on the Tools toolbar. So it's this button right here. If I select it, I get the same options as the Tools menu. I'm going to select the link, which is the architect's model, and it throws me into the Copy Monitor mode. Now, because the roof level exists in both models, I don't need to copy the original roof level from the architect into my host file, the MEP project. I just simply need to monitor them. I'm going to click the Monitor tool and select level 1 in my model, and I'm going to monitor it against the first floor in the architect's model. I'm also going to do that for the roof. So as I do this, you'll notice a little eye popping up here as I execute the command. This means I'm watching the architect's levels. And if he moves his levels in elevation, I'll be notified of him the next time I launch this project or reload his latest file that he sent me. With the levels created, I can move on to the next process. I'm going to close that elevation view and move back to my plan. I may want to keep track of the grids so that I may not create any unnecessary interference or clash problems with my systems here. I also want to have the flexibility to move the grids, bubbles, or elbow them to my needs. I cannot do that with the linked grids. So what I may have to do here is I may have to copy them in. So I'm going to copy the original grids from the architect into my model. To do that, I'm going to use the copy tool this time, and I can use a multiple option on the options bar here and just draw a selection window around the linked information. Now I can copy other things out such as floors and walls. I don't want to do that, so I'm going to use the filter selection tool to filter out just the grids and then finish the command. And just like that, I have my own grids now available to me to do with what I want. Now with that completed, I can go and finish the mode. And this concludes linking in the architectural model.